The first night, it was just pepper soup. The second night, she poured raw atarodo into my eyes. By the third night, I started bleeding in my sleep. People say the wicked don't die young. I believe them now, because the one I slapped that day should have been long buried, but her spirit still visits me every night with peppered vengeance. My name is Chidma, 26 years old, proud, sharp-tongued, and loud. I sell perfume oils and imported soap at Odenigbo Market in Yaba. My stall is near the gutter, just opposite the meat section. That place is war. If you blink, someone will steal your stool or your customer. I don't take nonsense, especially not from rude people or old women who think respect is automatic. That Wednesday was hot. NEPA had seized light for 2 days straight. I was on my period. And worst of all, I had just caught my useless boyfriend Kingsley texting another girl again. So yes, I was mad, boiling. That's when I saw her. That woman, bent like a broken hanger, dragging a tray of uga leaves and bitter leaf like she was being punished. Her wrapper was faded. Her slippers were almost white from dust. She looked like something that had been rejected by both the living and the dead. And where did she stop to rest? Right in front of my stall. "Auntie, I beg, comment for here," I said without looking up. I was arranging my soaps. She didn't answer. I turned. She was sitting on my stool. My stool. "Auntie," I snapped. "You no hear when I talk? Move from there." She looked up at me and smiled. Her eyes were like burnt charcoal, dark, dull, and deep. Her lips were dry, cracked. But her smile, it sent something cold down my spine. "Your mouth is sharp," she said, "but your spirit is soft, very soft." I blinked. "You day mad?" She didn't answer. People were starting to gather. Traders, apprentices, gossipers. I felt embarrassed. This ragged-looking witch was challenging me? In my stall? I lost it. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. Slap. A hot one, right across her face. My palm tingled from the contact. The market gasped. Even the flies paused in the air. She didn't fall. She didn't shake. She just slowly raised her hand to touch her cheek and smiled again. This time her eyes were wet. Not with tears, but with something else. Something wrong. "You have opened the pot," she said. "Now you will eat what's inside." I scoffed. Old mad woman. She stood up, gathered her scattered vegetables, and walked away without another word. I laughed it off. Everyone did. Even the woman selling tomatoes clapped and said I had done well. "All these old witches, Seth," she said. But that night I had the dream. I was lying on my bed, but the air was thick. My fan was spinning, but the room was hot like a furnace. I heard the sound first, stone grinding against stone. Then I saw her, sitting at the edge of my bed, grinding fresh red pepper. She was humming. The same woman I slapped. Her face was calm, too calm. "Welcome," she said without looking at me. I tried to move, but I was frozen. My hands, my legs, my lips. She scooped a spoonful of the pepper, blew on it gently, and brought it to my mouth. I couldn't close it. I couldn't scream. She fed me, slowly, deliberately. My tongue burst into fire. My throat tore apart. My eyes burned like acid. But I couldn't wake up. I couldn't run. When I finally opened my eyes in the real world, my lips were bleeding. And my bed sheet was stained with pepper seeds. That was only night one. That morning I didn't even brush my teeth before rushing outside. My lips were blistered. My tongue felt raw, like someone had scraped it with sandpaper. I kept spitting, hoping to remove the taste, but the pepper was inside me. No smoke, no pot, no trace of anything. Just the thick smell of burnt pepper that clung to my curtains. I sat on the edge of my bed, sweating, trembling, and confused. This cannot be ordinary. I touched my lips. Pain shot through me. I ran to the mirror. They were swollen, red, shiny. It was real. The night was not just a dream. I had eaten something in my sleep. I tried to pray. Jesus, Jesus, blood of Jesus. But my chest was heavy. My voice shook. It felt like a part of me had been tied down in the dream and had not returned. At the market later that day, everything felt off. People were staring, whispering. Even the woman that sold yam beside me avoided my eyes. Tunde, the boy that helped me carry goods sometimes, kept asking if I was sick. I lied. Just malaria, I said. But I knew it wasn't malaria. It wasn't typhoid. It wasn't physical. It was spiritual. Then I heard a voice behind me say, "You saw her, didn't you?" I turned. It was Mama Ngozi, an old trader with watery eyes who had been in the market for over 30 years. She sold ogbano and dried fish. "Who?" I asked, pretending not to know. She leaned closer. Her breath smelled of snuff. "The one you slapped yesterday. She doesn't forget. She doesn't forgive." "Wait, Mama, is she mad or what? Who is she?" Mama Ngozi clicked her tongue. "Her name is Iwaya Ayo. No one calls her that anymore. But long ago they said she was a priestess, powerful, until her only child died mysteriously and she withdrew from people." I laughed nervously. "Priestess? In this modern day?" She didn't smile. "They said she cursed the man who poisoned her son. He died the following year, after dreaming of red stew for months." I froze. "Red stew? Dreams?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Yes," she said. "The dead visit her in her dreams. She feeds those who offend her in theirs. Food that burns the spirit." My hand trembled. I knocked over a bottle of perfume oil. Customers were approaching, but I wasn't there anymore. My mind was in that smoky dream. My stomach rumbled, not from hunger, but from dread. That night I did everything. I prayed, I listened to worship music, I played Pastor Attaboy's audio in the background, I poured anointing oil around my bed. I even tied white handkerchiefs on my wrists, the way my mother used to when we were sick. But sleep came anyway, and so did she. I was in a bush. The ground was red, the sky was black. There was a pot bubbling on firewood. She was there. Iwaya Ayo. She was cooking. She stirred slowly, adding pepper after pepper. Ata rodo, yellow Scotch bonnet, even dry Cameroon pepper. She turned to me, smiled. "You like pepper soup?" I tried to run. I couldn't. My legs were buried in the ground. My arms were tied behind my back. I was naked again. She dipped the spoon into the boiling red soup and walked toward me. I cried. I begged. "Please, please forgive me." She looked at me. "Forgiveness is for humans," she said, "but you slapped a spirit." She fed me, and I swallowed it. I screamed, but no sound came. The sky cracked, the bush caught fire, and she laughed, that laughter. It wasn't human. It was high, sharp, echoing in every direction. I woke up choking, vomiting red liquid. My bedsheet was soaked with sweat, saliva, and something that looked like blended pepper. I screamed. That's when my neighbor, Ijoma, ran into my room, barefoot and panicking. "Chidinma, what is it? I heard you crying. Why is your mouth bleeding?" I looked at her. My tongue was red. My lips were cracked. I whispered. She came again. You don't need to sleep for the spirit to feed you. Once she enters your shadow, you'll taste fire even with your eyes wide open. The third day began with a nosebleed. Not the kind that drips. This one gushed like something inside me wanted out. I woke up to see my pillow soaked, my nightgown stuck to my chest with cold sweat, and red stains under my nose. Ijoma was the one who cleaned me up. She refused to go to her own shop, said I was not okay. I didn't argue, because she was right. I was not okay. I sat on the floor, shivering. Not because of cold, but because of the growing certainty. This woman is not human. I couldn't tell my mother. She'd scream and rush me to our pastor in Suka. I couldn't go to the hospital either. What would I tell them? Doctor, I ate pepper in my dream and now my intestines are boiling? They'd think I was mad, but I knew what was happening. Something spiritual, something ancient, something that had waited centuries for a foolish girl like me to cross its path. At the market, I tried to act normal. But the moment I stepped into my stall, my head spun, my nose twitched. I could smell it. Pepper. Not raw, cooked, hot, blended, bubbling. But there was no food anywhere. No firewood, no pot. Just that smell, like pepper soup made in hell. I looked around. Customers came and went, but I was dizzy, nauseous, hallucinating. My eyes caught movement behind the onions woman across the road. A shadow, bent, wrinkled, wearing a faded anchor wrapper. I blinked. It disappeared. But I heard it. That laugh, dry, cracked, like a calabash snapping in slow motion. I packed my goods in a frenzy and left the market early. People called after me. Chidima, are you okay? You day goes so early? But I didn't stop. My bones felt like they were melting. I entered my room and collapsed. I didn't sleep, but the nightmares still came. This time I wasn't tied. I was in my market stall, but everything was upside down. The sky was red. Tomatoes were breathing. The perfume oils on my table had turned into bottles of blended pepper. She was there. Mama Ayo, dancing slowly to a drum beat only she could hear. She had no eyes, just two black holes where her soul should have lived. She pointed at me. You slapped me before men, she said. You must bow before spirits. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, smoke. Pepper smoke. Thick, white hot, pouring out of my throat. I choked. I reached for my neck. I couldn't breathe. Then she laughed, again, and the pepper exploded inside me. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Oxygen mask, drip in my hand, my mother crying beside me. What did you eat, Chidima? Why didn't you tell me you were sick? She wailed. I tried to speak, but I couldn't. My voice was gone. My mother told me Ijeoma had rushed me in after finding me on the floor, eyes rolled back, frothing from the mouth. The doctor said it was severe dehydration and fever. He said maybe food poisoning. But I knew better. It wasn't food. It was the curse. And I hadn't even tasted the full pot yet. That night, even in the hospital, with nurses walking past and machines beeping, she still came. This time she wore white. Her feet floated above the ground. Her hands were covered in red pepper oil. Her voice was a whisper that thundered. I warned you, she said. She brought a bowl. Not a calabash, not a plate, a human skull. And it was full of pepper soup, with a human finger floating inside. She dipped her hand in and smeared the red liquid across my face. Eat, she said, or I will start feeding your mother next. I screamed. But in the real world, no one heard me. Because my scream didn't come from my mouth. It came from my soul. The hospital discharged me after 2 days. The doctors said my vitals were fine. My mother said it was spiritual attack. But I already knew. The problem wasn't my body. It was my soul that had been poisoned. And it was Mama Iomide that had brewed the poison. By the time I got home, Iheoma had already cleaned my room, sprayed air freshener, and sprinkled holy water from her mother's church. She even put a small wooden cross under my pillow. Still, I didn't sleep, because even when I closed my eyes, I saw them. That night, it started with the usual smoke. I was in my room, but not really. The walls were red, the ceiling was gone, the air tasted like ash. She was there, the woman in white. Not her usual dirty wrapper. This time she wore a blinding white dress with long sleeves that dragged across the floor. But it was stained, from the hem up, with blood. She didn't speak. She only watched me, her head slightly tilted, her hands behind her back. I tried to scream, but from behind her came something worse. A boy, maybe 10 years old, shirtless, thin like broomsticks, his body covered in dust. But what shook me were the chains around his hands and ankles, real heavy iron chains, dragging across the floor with every step he took. And his eyes, oh God, his eyes, empty, silent, screaming. He didn't speak either, just stood behind the old woman, staring at me. Then he started to cry. Tears ran down his cheeks. And with every drop, pepper began to pour from his mouth. First liquid, then whole slices, then Scotch bonnet, fresh, red, shiny. He cried pepper, and the woman reached back and collected it from his mouth and began cooking again. I woke up yelling, slapping myself, punching the walls. But my mouth was full. I ran to the bathroom and spat. A chunk of raw pepper fell into the sink. It was real. Not a dream. Not anymore. The next day, I went back to the market, not to sell, but to search. I asked questions, whispered, offered 2,000 naira to anyone who could tell me more about Mama Ayo. It was Odogwu, the herbal seller, who finally said something. He sat me down, brought out dry bitter cola, chewed and spoke slowly. You slapped the body of a woman, but her spirit died long before you came, he said. I frowned. What does that mean? She was once the head of a shrine, but her only child, Ayomide, was taken from her, poisoned by traitors who feared her power. She lost her mind. She cursed the market. They drove her out. She came back, years later, but not as human. I swallowed hard. So what do I do now? Odogwu stared at me for a long time, then said, You must go and speak to the boy. I blinked. What boy? The boy in your dreams. The one in chains. That's her son. He's the one trapped Dot until he forgives you. She'll keep feeding you, night after night. That night I did what Odogwu said. I didn't pray. I didn't run. I lay down, closed my eyes, and whispered, Ayomida, I'm sorry. The dream came like lightning. This time I was standing in front of a clay shrine. The air was thick with smoke, the smell of pepper and burnt hair. The woman was not there, but the boy was. Ayomide, still in chains, still crying, still feeding pepper into the pot. I knelt down, tried to touch him. The moment I reached out, the chains clamped around my wrists. My hands burned. The boy opened his mouth and spoke for the first time. You slapped my mother twice. I shook my head. Only once. He pointed at me. You insulted her soul when the market laughed. Then he looked down, and the ground began to open. Flames rose, the pot spilled. He whispered, "Now you'll see where the food is made." I screamed and fell into fire. I woke up under the bed, shivering, crying, and with a chain mark across both my wrists. The curse had begun to spread. When the whispers in my dreams became screams, and the peppers in my mouth turned to live coals, I knew it was time. I confided in my mother, who was more disappointed in me than the torments. "You think saying, everybody way they market be human?" she angrily asked. After much inquiries from some people, she took me to a self-acclaimed pastor who called himself and not God. Nothing changed. Instead, it got worse. When my torment reached its peak, dreams filled with fire, lips burnt with invisible pepper, I went back to the one person feared by even the spirits. Odogwu the seer. Odogwu was a man of silence. Eyes clouded with age, yet sharp enough to pierce through your lies. The moment I stepped into his shrine, he scoffed. "She comes to you in dreams, but you wounded her in the flesh. You thought prayer was the solution." My knees buckled. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "Knowing is not an excuse," he snapped. "You touched a woman whose spirit is tied to the earth. Mama Ayo was not just old. She was anchored." He poured palm wine into a black calabash, added 7 leaves of bitter leaf, and spoke into the mixture in a language my ears didn't recognize. Then he smeared white chalk on my forehead and whispered, "The pepper is not the punishment. It is the signal, the beginning." I shivered. "What does she want from me?" I asked. Odogwu didn't answer immediately. He threw 3 cowries on the ground, stared at them for a long while, then said, "Her son died in the same market you slapped her. No one helped. Her soul is trapped there." She mourned in silence. The land absorbed her pain. "She now walks between the living and the dead," he continued. "Grief holds her here, but vengeance fuels her wrath." He dipped his finger into the calabash and touched my tongue. Fire. My throat lit up like kerosene met a match. "She has marked your voice," he said, frowning. "You must speak the words of restitution, or your voice will be swallowed entirely." I fell to the ground, gasping for air. "What do I do?" I croaked. He turned to his shelf, pulled out an ancient jar wrapped in red thread. "You must return to the market. Pour this oil where you first slapped her. Speak her name 3 times. Mama Ayo, Mama Ayo, Mama Ayo. Apologize not with your mouth, but with your tears. Take offerings, fresh pepper, palm oil, and white cloth. If your repentance is true, she may release you. And if she doesn't," he looked at me long and hard, "then start preparing your burial cloth." I did everything he said. That Friday morning, I returned to the market at 3 a.m. No one was there yet. I knelt by the exact spot, the pepper stall she once stood behind. I poured the oil. I laid the white cloth down, and I cried. Not from fear, but from guilt, genuine sorrow. I called her name 3 times, loud and shaking. "Oh, Mama Ayo, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were more than what you seemed. Forgive me, please." The wind shifted. A single red pepper rolled toward me from nowhere and stopped by my feet. I picked it up, trembling. The moment I did, the market bell rang behind me, though there was no one there to ring it. That night I slept. But for the first time in weeks, there was no pepper, no fire, no woman. Just silence, and a whisper in the wind. "You have been seen." And that was it. The burning stopped. The dreams ended. I became a different person. Humbled, changed, and forever warned. Never raise your hand against the unknown. Where in the world are you listening to my story from? Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.